The stars outside the ship looked cold and endless. Captain John Walker stood on the bridge, hands behind his back, staring at the glowing station ahead. The Grand Hall of Unity floated in space like a giant silver ring. It was massive, easily larger than any human city. Lights blinked along its sides, guiding ships from 100 worlds toward it. John took a slow breath. "This is it," he said to his team. "Let's make history." The human delegation behind him was small, only 10 people, but they carried the hopes of Earth. Their ship, the Horizon, was the first human vessel ever allowed this close to Veora, the neutral planet around which the Grand Hall orbited. As they docked, the ship's intercom crackled. "Welcome, human delegation. Please proceed to the reception bay." John nodded and led the way. He wore a dark gray uniform, with a single silver star on the chest. Simple, respectful, no weapons, no armor. They had agreed on that to show they came in peace. The docking ramp lowered with a soft hiss. A group of alien officials stood waiting. They were tall and slender, their skin a soft green. Their eyes blinked sideways. "I am Overseer Kine," said the leader, bowing slightly. "We are honored by your presence." John returned the bow. "The honor is ours. We hope to build something lasting here." As they walked through the long corridors of the hall, John noticed the glances. Some delegates from other species whispered to each other. Others turned away. Their faces, scaled, furred, or entirely smooth, showed a mix of emotions: curiosity, suspicion, fear. John ignored it. He had expected nothing less. Humanity was new here, and the galaxy remembered its wars all too well. They entered a massive chamber, the main conference hall. It was shaped like a circle, with seats rising in layers around a central platform. Flags and emblems from dozens of worlds hung above, swaying gently in the artificial air. In the center sat the Council of Peace, leaders from the oldest and most powerful civilizations, and standing tall among them was Supreme Envoy Torek, the Zinthari leader. His skin was a deep metallic blue, and his eyes glittered coldly as they landed on John. A low murmur ran through the hall. John stood straight, his voice calm. "Captain John Walker, representing the United Earth Alliance," he announced. "We come in peace, seeking a place among the galactic community." Torek's lip curled slightly, an almost invisible sneer. "Peace," he said slowly, his voice like grinding stones. "We shall see." The room fell silent. Every eye turned toward John. He felt the weight of it, the doubts, the fear, the history he had no power to erase. Still, he lifted his chin. "We are here to listen," John said, "and to learn." The council members nodded, some with warmth, others stiffly. The talks would begin soon. John knew this was only the beginning, and the real test was still ahead. He could only hope humanity was ready. The conference hall buzzed with quiet conversations. Delegates whispered among themselves, throwing careful glances at the humans. Captain John Walker stood with his team at the edge of the circle, waiting for the formal talks to begin. A deep tone rang through the hall. It was the call to order. The Council of Peace gathered at the central platform. One by one, leaders from different worlds gave their opening speeches. They spoke of hope, cooperation, and the hard lessons learned from centuries of war. John listened carefully. He noticed the careful words, the polite smiles. But beneath it all, he could feel the tension, like a rope pulled too tight. When it was time, Supreme Envoy Torek rose from his seat. He was tall and commanding, his metallic blue skin catching the light. His voice was deep and slow. "The galaxy has suffered much," Torek said. "We have built this hall to prevent further suffering. But trust is not given freely. It must be earned." He looked straight at John. "Some species," Torek continued, "are young, impulsive, driven by emotion rather than reason. We must ask ourselves if they are ready to join us, or if their presence risks the fragile peace we have fought so hard to build." A quiet stir moved through the room. Several delegates nodded. A few shifted uncomfortably. John felt his fists clench, but he forced himself to relax. This was expected. Torek was testing him, testing all humans. He would not rise to the bait. When Torek finished, Overseer Kine turned to the human delegation. "Captain Walker," Kine said politely, "you may respond." John stepped forward. His voice was steady. "Humanity understands the weight of peace," he said. "We know trust must be earned. That is why we are here, not to demand a place, but to prove we deserve one." He paused, meeting Torek's gaze. "We will listen, we will learn, and we will work to build trust, day by day." Some delegates looked thoughtful. A few seemed impressed, but Torek remained stone-faced. As the talks continued, small disagreements started to surface. The representatives from the Vargans, a warlike reptilian species, argued that humans were too unpredictable. The serene Alari, peaceful beings of light, defended humanity's right to be heard. Minor arguments flared over trade routes, defense agreements, and territorial borders. Each disagreement, no matter how small, added more tension to the room. John watched carefully. He saw how Torek skillfully fanned the flames, sowing doubt among the council members, without ever speaking directly against humans again. By the end of the day, John felt the weight of it all pressing down on him. He gathered his team in a small waiting room near their assigned quarters. "They're looking for an excuse," said Lieutenant Harris, one of the younger diplomats. "One slip and they'll shut us out." John nodded. "I know, that's why we have to be better, smarter, calmer." He looked around at his team, faces young and old, hopeful and anxious. "We came here to build a future," he said. "We can't let pride or anger destroy that." They nodded in agreement, but John could see the strain in their eyes. It would not be easy. Outside the window, stars burned silently in the darkness. Tomorrow the real challenges would begin. The next morning, the Grand Hall of Unity was tense. Delegates moved stiffly through the corridors. Conversations were short. Smiles were rare. Captain John Walker walked alongside his team, feeling the pressure in the air. Today's discussions would focus on defense alliances, a sensitive topic for every species. Trust was thin, and suspicion thickened the room like a heavy fog. John kept his voice low as he spoke to his team. "Stay calm, no arguments. Listen first, speak second." They nodded, and together they entered the main conference hall. Supreme Envoy Torek was already there, standing tall and proud at the center platform. His presence alone seemed to darken the room. One by one, representatives spoke about their fears. The Dravens worried about border security. The Silthari warned about sharing military technology. Then came the Xanthari proposal, a strict limit on the weapons humans could develop or own in space. John stiffened. This wasn't negotiation, it was control. He rose to speak. "Humans are willing to agree to reasonable terms," John said. "But we must have the right to defend ourselves, just like any other world." Torek's eyes narrowed. His voice was sharp. "Defense," he said, "is often the excuse of those preparing for war." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. John chose his next words carefully. "We ask only for the same respect you give yourselves." Torek smiled coldly. "Respect must be earned, Captain Walker, not demanded." The hall buzzed with quiet conversations. Tension grew thicker. Then it happened. A young human delegate, Mark Steele, stood up. His face was red with anger. "This is a setup," Mark shouted. "You never intended to let us in. You just wanted us here to humiliate us." Gasps filled the hall. Several alien leaders pulled back in alarm. John moved quickly toward Mark, speaking low and firm. "Stand down, Mark." But it was too late. The damage was done. Torek turned to the council, his voice calm and smooth. "You see, they are ruled by emotion. How can they be trusted with the responsibility of peace?" Some delegates nodded grimly. John clenched his fists, his heart pounding. He saw the looks around the room, fear, doubt, anger. Without waiting for permission, the human delegation gathered their things. The humiliation was too much. Some delegates whispered urgently, trying to stop them. but pride burned too hot. Captain Walker followed his team out of the hall, keeping his back straight, refusing to show weakness. Behind him, the Council of Peace watched in horror. Humanity's first chance at joining the galactic community was crumbling before his eyes. As the doors closed behind them, John felt the weight of failure settle on his shoulders. This was not how it was supposed to end. Captain John Walker paced the floor of the small conference room aboard the Horizon. His team sat around the table, silent and tense. No one dared to speak first. John finally stopped and faced them. "We made a mistake," he said, voice tight but controlled. "And now the whole galaxy thinks we're dangerous." Mark Steele lowered his head, shame burning on his face. "I lost my temper," he said. "I'm sorry." John sighed. He was angry too, but shouting would fix nothing. "It's not about blame," John said. "It's about what we do now." A soft beep from the communication panel interrupted them. Lieutenant Harris checked it and looked up. "Sir, Overseer Kine is requesting a private meeting." John nodded immediately. "Patch it through." The screen flickered to life. Overseer Kine's calm face appeared. "Captain Walker," Kine said gently, "many on the council are troubled. Your departure has shaken the talks." John kept his voice steady. "We do not wish to break the peace. We acted in frustration. I take full responsibility." Kine studied him for a moment. "Some still believe in your intentions, but Supreme Envoy Torek is using this moment to turn the council against you." John's heart sank. "If humanity is officially rejected," Kine continued, "you will not be allowed to join future talks. Worse, some may see you as a threat that must be controlled." The words hit hard. It wasn't just about being left out. It was about survival. "Is there anything we can do?" John asked. Kine hesitated. "Perhaps. If you return to the hall before the council finalizes its decision, and make a direct appeal, there is a small chance." John nodded. "Thank you, Overseer. I won't waste it." The screen went dark. John turned to his team. They looked worn out, hopeless. He couldn't blame them. The dream of joining the galactic community seemed to be slipping away, but giving up was not an option. He placed his hands firmly on the table. "We are not leaving. Not like this. We have one chance left to make them see who we really are." They sat straighter, listening closely. "We go back," John said. "I will speak for humanity. I'll remind them of why we came. Not with anger. Not with pride. With hope." Mark looked up, guilt still in his eyes. "Whatever you need, Captain," he said quietly. "We're with you." The rest of the team nodded. John allowed himself a small, grim smile. Outside the ship, the Grand Hall of Unity floated, bright against the cold black sky. Inside it, a decision was being made that would shape the future of Earth. John Walker was determined not to let fear and mistakes write that future. The air inside the Horizon felt heavy as Captain John Walker prepared for what could be humanity's last chance. He stood before his team, his uniform straight, his expression firm. "We go back now," he said. "No shouting, no anger. We go with our heads high." The team nodded, their faces serious. They knew what was at stake. John tapped his communicator. "This is Captain Walker. Request immediate re-entry to the Grand Hall." For a long moment, there was only silence. Then the voice of a station officer crackled through. "Permission granted. You have access to Bay 12. John gave a small nod. "They're giving us a chance. Let's not waste it." The human delegation moved quickly. No time for long talks or second-guessing. Every step toward the docking bay felt heavier than the last. As they walked, John's mind raced. What if they refuse to listen? What if Torek turns everyone against us? But he pushed the doubts away. Fear would not guide him. When they arrived, 2 tall guards escorted them toward the main hall. Whispers followed them down the corridors. Delegates from different worlds watched with wide, wary eyes. Inside the council chamber, Supreme Envoy Torek stood in the center, speaking to the gathered leaders. They abandoned the talks, Torek was saying. They showed their true nature. We cannot risk giving them power among us. John didn't wait for permission. He stepped onto the center platform and spoke clearly, his voice cutting through the room. Council members, I ask for the right to speak. Murmurs broke out across the hall. Some delegates looked unsure. Others looked angry. Overseer Ken rose slowly. I move to hear Captain Walker, he said. Torek's mouth tightened into a hard line, but he did not object. The chair of the council, a wise and ancient being called Malrek, gave a small nod. You may speak, Captain. John looked around the circle of faces. Different species, different histories, but one common fear of the unknown. He took a deep breath. Humanity is not perfect, he said. We have made mistakes. We have let anger guide us in the past, but we have also built wonders. We have risen from war to dream of peace. He paused, letting the words settle. We did not come here to conquer or to command. We came to learn, to share, to stand among you, not above you. Some delegates leaned forward, listening. We are young, John admitted. And like the young, we are sometimes rash. But youth also brings hope, and strength, and the hunger to build a better world. He turned, looking directly at Torek. If we are judged only by our worst moments, we will always fail. But if you judge us by our will to change, to grow, to do better, then I ask you, give us the chance to prove who we truly are. The hall fell silent. No one moved, no one spoke. The future of humanity hung in the balance. The silence in the grand hall felt endless. Captain John Walker stood alone at the center, the weight of every word he had spoken pressing down on him. He saw the faces of the delegates, some thoughtful, some cold, some uncertain. Supreme Envoy Torek stepped forward. His metallic blue skin shimmered under the hall's bright lights. Words are easy, Captain Walker, Torek said, his voice calm but sharp. Actions are harder. John met his gaze without blinking. Then judge us by our actions, he said quietly. Give us the chance to show you. The council chair, Malrek, rose slowly from his high seat. His voice was deep and steady. You have spoken well, Captain Walker. Now it is for the council to decide. Murmurs filled the chamber as delegates began to discuss among themselves. The conversations were urgent but careful. No shouting, no accusations, only serious, whispered talks about the future. John stepped back to stand with his team. They said nothing, but their tense faces said everything. They were scared. They all were. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, Overseer Kine approached John. The council will vote, Kine said. You must accept the result, whatever it may be. John nodded. We will. The voting began. One by one, the leaders raised their voices, either in support of humanity or against it. John listened to every word, his heart pounding. Some praised humanity's bravery. Others warned that humans were still too unstable. The votes were close, too close. As the final delegate, an old and wise leader from the Siltheri, prepared to cast her vote, the entire hall held its breath. She paused, her glowing white eyes scanning the human delegation. Then she spoke, her voice like a soft bell. I vote to give them a chance. A soft gasp ran through the hall. Malrek rose again, holding up a carved wooden staff, the symbol of the council's power. The vote is complete, he announced. The humans will be allowed to remain. They will have a place among us, but under strict observation. Relief washed over John like a wave. His legs almost gave out, but he stood firm. Supreme Envoy Torek's face remained still, but John could see the anger in his cold eyes. Torek approached him, speaking in a low, warning tone. You may have won today, Captain, but one mistake, one slip, and you will lose everything. John met him with a calm nod. Then we will be careful, he said, and we will not fail. Torek turned away, his cloak sweeping behind him. The human team gathered around John, smiles breaking across their faces. Some even wiped away tears. We did it, Lieutenant Harris whispered. No, John said softly. looking around the massive hall filled with so many alien faces. This is just the beginning. Outside, through the giant glass windows, the stars still shined cold and distant. But for the first time, John felt they were a little closer. Hope had a place among them now. The Grand Hall of Unity was quieter now. Delegates filed out slowly, their long robes and cloaks brushing the polished floors. Voices were low, cautious. The decision had been made, but trust would not come easily. The scars of old wars still ran deep among the stars. Captain John Walker stood with his team near the center of the hall. He let out a slow breath, feeling the weight of the last few hours finally lift a little from his shoulders. Overseer Kin approached, offering a slight bow. "You have done well, Captain Walker," Kin said. Few could have faced such doubt, and still found a way forward. John bowed back respectfully. "We're honored to have the chance. We won't waste it." Ken smiled faintly, a rare sign of approval. "There will be trials ahead," he said. "Not all trust easily, not all forgive quickly." John nodded. "I understand. Trust is built, not given." Behind Ken, Supreme Envoy Torek moved through the crowd. His cold eyes met John's for a brief moment. No words were exchanged, but the warning in that look was clear. This was not the end of Torek's resistance. John turned back to his team. "We have a place now," he said. "It's not full acceptance, it's not full trust, but it's a start." Lieutenant Harris grinned. "It's more than we had yesterday." The others chuckled softly, the tension finally breaking. As they made their way toward the docking bays, John took one last look around the grand hall. Banners of dozens of worlds hung above. For the first time he imagined Earth's symbol, blue and green against black, joining them someday. A future where humanity would stand not as outcasts, but as partners. At the airlock, John paused. He spoke softly, almost to himself. "We were judged today, not by our strength, but by our willingness to change." The others heard him and stood a little taller. Together they boarded the horizon and prepared for departure. But this time they weren't running away. They were stepping into something new, something fragile, but real. The stars outside seemed to burn a little brighter as they set course for Earth. A long journey still lay ahead, filled with challenges, mistakes, and hard work. But now there was hope, and hope was enough.